What's another thing
Yeah.
that in the Shark Tank? We talked
Yes.
about sparking dopamine. What else?
Okay, so we talked about reading, we talked about dopamine, we talked about interactivity, we talked about complimenting in a way that allows someone to see themselves in you or pulling out a similarity.
That's good.
Right? So like, like you, Lori, we really value. Mr. Wonderful, we love Mr. Wonderful products, right? Like that really helped. I mean, it sounds like sucking up, but actually it really works. It really worked. The other thing that we noticed about the interactivity is what they would do is they would cross space zones. So they would have something to give the sharks and they would go from the carpet to the chairs.
That worked usually.
Worked because they were going into intimate zone very quickly. So this is called a nonverbal bridge. It's kind of an advanced technique. Do you want to talk about it?
Yes.
Okay. So a nonverbal bridge is a way that we cross into someone's intimate space, but safely. So what happens is when we're with someone, we want to connect with them. We want more oxytocin. We want to bond with them.
Yes.
But sometimes it can be hard to break that boundary. A nonverbal bridge is a way that we can create oxytocin with permission. So that could be handing someone something. That could be giving a high five. That could be touching their elbow. And that is exactly what successful pitchers did. They would have a reason or an excuse to, hey, Lori, let me guide you up here. Hey, Kevin, let me zip on this suit for you. Hey, you want to try this amazing cinnamon roll? And when they did that, they created these small little bridges. So what I would think about is like, how can you create bridges to people where you're engaging them even physically? Right, and that's harder on video, but in person, that was a thing that we found in the tank.
How do you do it in a way that the person feels comfortable if you touch them on the elbow? Because someone may not feel comfortable.
Right.
So you have to be really intuitive to, is this person going to be receptive to me? Are they already interested enough where I can get closer?
Yes.
Not
Are they
just-
leaning in? Are they giving eye contact? Are they nodding? Oh, I forgot another one that was really important. So vocal power. So we haven't really talked about vocal power, and this was a big one in the tank. So we hear confidence. We hear competence. And the biggest way that we do this is with inflection. So inflection is the biggest mistake that we make is the question inflection. So the question inflection is when we go up at the end of our sentences, right? It's also called up talk. So if I were to...
But don't do up talk.
Don't do up talk. We're going to talk about why.
Yes.
So when we use the question inflection, it cues the other person's brain to know, we're being asked a question. The problem is that when we accidentally use the question inflection, it makes people question you. Right?
Are they really trustworthy?
Right. So what happened is, in this study where they looked at doctors, they found that the doctors who had, so I'll break down the study. So what they did is they asked doctors to record 10-second voice tone clips. And they said like their name, their specialty, where they worked. So it sounded like, hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I work in oncology. I specialize in children's medicine. Something like that. They took the clips and they warbled the words. So you couldn't understand the actual words being said. So it sounded like, right?
Yeah.
Then they asked people to rate these clips on warmth and competence, right? Again, this research has been repeated over and over again. Imagine this for a second. You're asked to listen to a clip of gobbledygook.
Yes, to see if they're competent
Are
and
they
trustworthy.
smart? Do you like them? Yeah. And people do it. What they found is the doctors who had the lowest warmth and competence ratings had the highest rate of malpractice lawsuits. That implies that we don't just sue doctors based on their skills. We sue doctors based on our perception of their skills, and that happens in the first few seconds of hearing them.
So your communication is everything.
Everything. It's not just the words you're using. Are they warm? Are they competent? It's even how you're saying the words. Wow. So the very first story I break down in the book, and this is in the intro, so if you want to just look at the sample chapter, you could. I analyze Jamie Siminoff's pitch. Jamie Siminoff is the founder of Ring.
That didn't get any money, and then it sold for $1 billion.
Yes. Here is a brilliant guy, right? Jamie Siminoff is brilliant. He had a successful product, right? Ring is a very successful product. Amazon acquired it for over $1 billion with a B dollars. Yet, he goes into the pitch in the Shark Tank, and he pitches, and he doesn't get a deal. Why? That pitch plagued me. Because I was like, here is a smart guy with a great idea, but his cues were the problem. I think that he lost his pitch. This is a really big statement, and if you listen to it, you'll hear it. I think he lost the deal in the first 10 seconds of them hearing him. And the reason is he made the choice to close the doors to the tank. So in his pitch, he doesn't walk down the hallway. You don't see that long first impression. You don't get public to social to personal. He closed the doors. And what he did is he went, He knocked on the door of the
They're
Shark
like,
Tank.
hello, who's
and they're
there?
Like, they're like, hello. And he goes, it's Jamie? So he asked his own name. And when you're a shark and you're trying to make a very quick first impression of someone without seeing them, and you hear the question inflection that's supposed to be used on a statement, you immediately begin to question, I don't know. And that is also because we know that liars are more likely to use the question inflection. If you've ever played Two Truths and a Lie, have you ever played that game?
Yeah.
Okay, so Two Truths and a Lie, here's a little tip for everyone. If you ever play that game, people almost always ask the lie. So they'll be like, oh yeah, Two Truths and a Lie. I have a goldfish, I am a vegetarian, and I love dogs. They almost always go up on their lie. And that's because when we're lying, we don't know if you believe us. So subconsciously, we give it away. So Jamie starts his pitch, and he doesn't have a first impression. He doesn't do any greeting in the hallway. He misses that whole walk up. The very first words out of his mouth, doesn't even matter what he says, is, right, up top. And then Mark Cuban says, are you here to pitch? And he says, here to pitch? Again, using the question inflection. I think that what happened is it gave away his competence. And then the doors open, right? And he explains this idea of ring, it's a doorbell. The problem is his first impression was very low in competence. And so he had a lot of trouble having the sharks take him seriously.
He was a very competent individual building his business, right? He was very smart, intelligent, knew the technology, how to build product, teams, all these things, get sales, whatever it was. But the warmth wasn't there as well, it seems like, right? Like the trustworthy, charisma, warmth, confidence.
He undersignaled every step of the way. So he undersignaled warmth, he undersignaled competence, and then was trying to dial up competence. And you hear in the rest of the pitch, he's
trying to build it back up. He's like, but we've done this, and look, we've got this technology.
And this money, and then this. And so he cannot get it back. He could not get it back. And so I think I watched that pitch and I break it down in the book of what happened to this brilliant guy who had one bad day. And I think that if he scripted those answers, he prepared for that pitch, and he had really good verbal answers. There was even a couple times where I think this thing happens for people who over-rehearse. So if you have an interview or a presentation, what do? You rehearse it, right? You practice the perfect answer. That can get in your way, though, because if you practice the perfect answer, this is exactly what happened to Siminoff, and very highly intelligent people do this. He would hear a question from a shark, usually a challenging question, because they were like really pushing him on the deal, and they didn't believe him. No one believed him. They all thought, oh no, it's too crowded of a market, it will never work. They literally said that to him. Okay, I have Ring on my front door. And they literally said never. He could not get them to believe him because what would happen is they would ask him a question, he would start to answer it organically, and then he would switch into his rehearsed answer.
Oh, no.
So you would hear, oh yeah, we do have market track. Our market traction has been wonderful. In fact, in the last 5 years, we've done X numbers, and you would be like, who is this robot?
Yeah, just say what's on your heart. Yeah, just say it organically.
Right, and so I think you can be the smartest person in the world, you can have the best ideas, but if you don't share them right, you're not helping people help you. And so it drives me crazy when smart people can't get their ideas heard. And that pitch crushed me. I felt so bad for him, and he made it. He's okay now, right? He's doing really well.
And then he was like a guest shark or whatever,
Okay, and what's amazing is when you watch him walk into the tank as a shark, you can see the difference. You can feel the difference.
The confidence,
Oh my, he walks into the tank, he walks down the hallway. Right? He walks down the hallway, he's smiling, he gestures, hey everyone, good to see you. He shakes hands. He does all the things he didn't do in that original pitch. And you can see the difference. And he's the same person, same ideas, similar suits, yet he looks like a different person.
Fascinating. It's not about what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
How you present yourself and your words. And your words?
No. No.
Just kidding. I'm curious about this. There's a big topic out there right now. I just did a recent interview with Dr. Ramani, who is a therapist, psychologist, talking about narcissism a lot today. Yeah. Can you talk to me the difference between charisma and narcissism? And how can you spot when someone is actually warm and caring and charismatic versus someone who uses the skills or the tools of charisma in their narcissistic approach towards manipulating, controlling, and getting what they want in life?
So this is my biggest fear with this book. This is my single biggest fear, and it was an issue for me when I first started writing it. is, I'm gonna be honest, you can use this book for manipulation.
Yeah, of course.
And that scares me.
And when a smart person who's narcissistic is going to study everything and then start using it.
It scares me.
So how can you tell the difference? The subtle cues, these are very subtle now.
Very subtle, yeah. So we're talking about big to subtle, right? There's like a range of them. So first is, it is my biggest fear with this book that people do not have the right intentions. And my hope is that we can actually use these powers for good and not evil. That is the number one thing, is you can, if you want to. Here's the good news. There are certain cues that we cannot control. And if you have bad intentions, they will leak. So I call these danger zone cues. So in the book I talk about, there's 4 different types of cues. There's highly warm, nonverbal, verbal, and vocal. So these are things that make you highly warm, highly trustworthy, highly likable. There's highly competent cues, verbal, nonverbal, and vocal. And then there's charismatic, the ones that are just knock it out of the park. Like they're just great. And the last one is danger zone cues. Danger zone cues are the cues that get us into trouble. They're the cues that liars use.
Ooh.
They're the way that we leak guilt and shame. Actually, shame is not a bad thing. It's only when you have guilt that you've done something wrong. So in the danger zone, it is very hard to inhibit those cues. So I teach them because I want people to be able to spot them.
Okay, what are those cues?
Okay, so there's a bunch, and let's talk about as many as we can. So
and this might be someone who's very successful, someone who's accomplished a lot potentially, someone that seems very credible, someone that could be in a power position, owning a business or having influence online or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Extremely successful. They could be successful. They could seem credible, trustworthy.
Yes.
But might be super narcissistic underneath.
Yes, so there's a couple danger zone cues that we can control, which a manipulative person could inhibit, right? So, for example, one that I found that I talk about in the book is Lance Armstrong. So Lance Armstrong, for those who don't know, spoiler alert, Lance Armstrong was doping. So if you haven't, someone was like, there was spoilers in the book. And I was like, you haven't heard of that news yet? I also talk about Britney Spears in the book because there's some really interesting cues on her, which I think why we're worried about her, why her fans worry. She shows a lot of danger zone cues.
Yes.
So Lance Armstrong, in one of his early interviews on Larry King Live, he's asked about doping. And he does what's called a lip purse. So a lip purse is, when we push our lips into a flat line, we mash our lips together. That is a universal withholding gesture. So when we're literally trying to hold something in or hold something back, or we don't like what's being said or heard, we go. And so you'll notice that when someone has been asked something they don't like, when someone had to lie, a lot of the time, so we did a massive experiment in our lab where we asked people to send in videos of themselves lying. Actually, you play it in the book. It's called Lie to Me. So I have you lie to me, play this lie to me game to diagnose your own tells. It's very important to know your own tells because you should know what your danger zone cues are when you're leaking them. And one of the, you should know those. It's good to know those in the back of your pocket. Do that with your partner, right? You want them to know what those are too. So one thing that we noticed is on lies. That was one of the biggest indicators. So in Lie to Me game, we ask you to do 2 things. We ask you to tell us an embarrassing story, your most embarrassing story, and then a fake embarrassing story. And we want to see if we can tell the difference. If we cut the clips, can we know which one is the fake one?
Man, that'd be interesting.
Yes, and it's amazing. You see the same danger zone cues over and over again. Right before someone's about to lie and tell their fake embarrassing story, they go, okay, and they lip purse right before they're going to do it. And that's because we don't like lying. Our body knows it's going to get us into trouble. So we're like, stop it, stop it, stop it. And we hold ourselves back. You ask a woman, how much do you weigh? And she'll go, like literally close those lips because no woman wants to talk about how much she weighs. So it's a withholding gesture. And so that's the first thing is you want to look for some of the bigger cues, withholding gestures. Lip purse is one. A sudden distancing behavior. So we also noticed that liars in our lab, they wanted to like get away from the lie, like as if it smelled. So like when they were telling their most embarrassing story, they'd be like leaning in, using gestures. Oh, it was so embarrassing. And remember, embarrassing stories are negative.
Right.
It's not like it's a positive memory. Right. It's like people are like, and they do a shame touch. The universal shame touch is when people touch their fingers to the side of their forehead.
This happened and I'm
oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
So they're usually telling the truth when they do like this.
Yes, because they're actually embarrassed, right? So these are all good, like congruent, right? We're seeing embarrassment and shame gesture. We're seeing negative nonverbal and people shaking their head. I can't believe that happened, right? Like they're so upset that happened. We're seeing cringes. We're seeing fear. We're seeing sadness. Congruent, right? Like that's all congruent emotion. On the bad stories, we often see people will lip purse and then they try to get away from it. So they'll say a statement and then, and then, and they're literally like as
far away, I hope I'm not messing up my audio there, as far away from the lie as they can possibly get. They're leaning back. They'll sometimes literally lean their head back in the chair. And that's because physically we want to distance ourselves from things we don't like. So we're looking for lip purses, sudden distancing. And there's a lot of cues that we can't control, right? So blink rate is another one. Eye blocking behavior is liars have higher blink rates.
They blink more.
Yeah, actually, in Britney Spears, she had a really interesting interview that I actually break this down on my YouTube channel, so you don't even have to read the book if you want to see it, where I break down the cues in this early interview. This is right before the conservatorship started, so very, very full of cues because it's right before it happened. And she gets asked a very difficult question, and she, all of a sudden, her blink rate goes from a normal rate to a high rate. So she starts to really quickly blink her eyes like this, and that is because when we're really nervous, we literally want to close out stimuli to not see what's happening so we can process what's happening. So blink rate is something that a lot of manipulative people cannot control. In fact, when I share this, people go, oh, I know a very narcissistic, manipulative person who has a very high blink rate.
Interesting.
Because they're literally like trying to block out the lie or the manipulation. And so they'll sound really good, but they're like really like processing a lot. And you're like, why are they blinking so much? And it's because they're trying to process.
Oh my goodness.
So just knowing those cues are not all bad on their own, but it's important to know what those cues look like so you can spot them. And I really think, manipulative people will get caught eventually. It is very hard to fake competence. It is very hard to fake warmth. It's hard to keep that up. And so for the long game, yes, you can learn a couple of these cues and try to master your way around them. But for the long game, it's really hard. I mean, look at, Theranos, right? So Elizabeth Holmes. So spoiler alert, Theranos did not go well. I feel like I always have to say that. So one of her interesting cues is, I don't know if you've ever seen her talk. She uses a really deep voice, like fakely deep, like down here. And people used to say, like, is that real? It's because she read in some cue book, it wasn't mine because my book wasn't out then, thank goodness. She read in some book that having a lower tone of voice makes you more competent. And that is true. Research has found that people who use the lower end of their natural voice tone are seen as competent. That's for both men and women. So you have a very deep voice and it serves you really well. When I'm talking right now, I'm trying to use the lowest end of my natural register. When I'm talking to my toddler. Right. Yeah. When I'm talking to my toddler, I'm much more up here. Hey baby, how are you? But if I were to do my entire interview like this, it would drive you crazy. Right.
You wouldn't feel competent.
No, and it wouldn't, and people would go, I can't, I'm not saying I can't take her seriously. So she read that study, obviously.
And went an octave lower.
There you go. And went an octave lower. So it wasn't her natural voice tone. It was like one step lower than her voice tone. So she was always talking like this. And when she did an interview, she would talk like this. And you would hear that this just doesn't sound natural. And part of your spidey sense would be like, why is she talking so low? It sounds really unnatural. And it came out that when she was drunk, her employees noticed that she went back into her natural register.
Wow.
So there are cues that they will eventually break.
Don't drink alcohol. No,
and that is the point of this story. Don't drink alcohol.
Or you're going to get caught.
So you can't keep it up for that long.
Right.
It is that she was faking that cue, we think.
I think you're also just, your body is out of integrity. Like the more you're keeping back something, you're telling a slight lie or whatever. I mean, I felt this from the past because I've been out of integrity in my life at different times, from different stages of childhood to adulthood, right? For little white lies to bigger stuff, hiding from my parents or whatever it is.
They feel bad.
So you're like, ugh, like something inside of you feels off, right? And then you got to keep the lie up, and you're like, eventually you're going to explode, or you're going to have a heart attack, or something.
Leak. Yeah, it's going to leak.
It's going to leak.
Leaking
cues.
You leak those cues, and those are the cues that we're looking for. I want you to be on the lookout for them, because when something feels bad, even something feels bad, even just then when you were saying it felt bad, your voice tone changed.
Right.
Just then.
Yeah.
Because when you think about, think about seeing a toxic person, and I know that people probably have toxic people in their lives, and this is why toxic people are so challenging, because toxic people put us out of integrity. Toxic people force us to use warm cues where we don't feel like it. Now we can do it.
What do you mean? We got to be nice to them or something?
Yeah. So if you have a toxic person, and this is the thorn in I think our work, is I want everyone to be their best selves. I want them to show up as their warmest, most competent self. But what if you have a toxic person? How do you do that authentically? And this is what's so hard about toxic people. You have a colleague or a coworker or a family member that you don't like, right? And you have to break out the fake warmth cues. Oh, hi. How are you? Right? And so what do? We fake smile, right? So, oh, it's so good to see you. Right?
that
And
doesn't look
no, it doesn't look like
authentic.
it, right?
Yeah.
Or we say, oh, yeah, so that sounds good. Congratulations. Right?
Now your LA roots are coming back to you.
And that's why toxic people challenge us, is because they come into our lives. We know we're supposed to be warm. And so we try to force that warm sound, and it comes out sort of forced, and then it makes us feel bad, and then we're trying to overcompensate for it. And so you know what the antidote here is? Not learning more fake warmth cues. It's time to get rid of toxic people. I think that's like the side effect
Right.
of the book is like,
Don't keep them around.
don't keep those people around because it will leak. And so set
So
boundaries
what do you
around
mean
them.
it will leak? Like your integrity will leak because you're constantly trying to be nice, but you're actually out of integrity because you don't want to be.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. That's exactly
So your
right.
body is like, I'm doing something that's not authentic to
There you
me because I feel like I have to with this person.
That's right.
And the more frequently you do that, you feel out of integrity with yourself.
Yep. Exactly.
With
So
yourself.
with yourself.
So
That was a question you were
that's a
asking
question.
me. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yes, it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. That was perfect because you were asking a question. I knew, yes, is if you allow toxic people to come into your life, especially without boundaries, we have to have
Oh,
some of those
yeah.
people we deal with.
Yeah, of
But
course.
if you don't have boundaries around them, they come into your life and you have to fake niceness. The real smile was contagious. So when people looked at the real smile, they themselves felt happier. When they looked at the fake smile, they felt no mood change.
Interesting.
So the reason why that's important is I think that we think about like, oh, I want to show up, I want to be really my most confident self, but what we don't realize is that our cues are contagious.
Yes.